This slide just shows some of the reservoir travel times to Cairo, Illinois. And you can see as we have these reservoirs, we can control the flows. We can hold back some of the water to impact the stages in the upper Mississippi part of around Cairo. And that's what we did. There's a lot of system coordination between the water management professionals, between the three divisions, and kind of orchestrating this and timing the releases in the system. The next part I want to talk about is this is Bird's Point, New Madrid floodway. This is the number 2 on that chart that I just showed you. And this is about 130,000 acres of floodway. And so the stages in the river required us to actually operate this floodway. We had to take the explosives in, pump it into several reaches of the levee, and then blow that levee so that it would allow water to flow through there. There were a lot of hard questions that were asked about this, rightfully so, for the farmers and residents that lived in this floodway. And you can kind of see the different stages of that. There was a lot of coordination that was going on with the locals, with the state, with the governor, with other federal agencies to make sure that these decisions were effectively communicated to the public and that they were given time to act and to evacuate those floodways. This went all the way to the Supreme Court. And we did have to operate this floodway when we got a projection of about a 63-foot crest that was projected by the National Weather Service. And this just shows from the very bottom all the way to the top the different things that occur when you're making those decisions, notifications. And again, this is a systems approach of operating the Mississippi River and tributary system. So what were the effects of operating that floodway? Well, you can look at the top projection is 63 feet, and then you start seeing the blue line, that crest around 60, a little over 60 feet, and then it starts dropping off. That was when the floodway was operated. So about 3.5 feet difference of what was projected by the National Weather Service and what we actually saw on the river after we operated the floodway. And that did relieve pressure on the floodway, on the main stem Mississippi River. And then a lot of people kept asking that question, why? Why did we operate the floodway? Well, this is why we operated it. The consequences of not operating the floodway and having some type of catastrophic failure on the MR&T, and this was just a conservative estimate, if we would have had an unintended breach of the system, we could have flooded about 2.5 million acres of land shown there in the yellow. So these are very difficult decisions, very tough decisions to make. But I think on balance, you can see the trade-offs of risk reduction that were made in the system. This is that slide again, just to show you that. We're going to move down the system a little now, and I'm going to quickly do this to just show you what's going on the lower part of the river. There's 3 major flood structures, risk reduction structures, and that's Old River, Morganza, and Bonacary, and I'll kind of walk you through those. This is Old River. That's where the 30-70 split occurs on the flows of the Mississippi. This is looking south. There's a hydropower plant, there's a low sill structure and an auxiliary structure. And if you looked at this right now, a lot of that ground that you see in front of those structures will be completely flooded during this current event. This is another feature, the Bonacary Spillway, 30 miles north of New Orleans. You can kind of see the different aspects of that. You have a spillway. And when you get to a certain trigger, 1,250,000 cubic feet per second, that's when we start opening it. And this allows the flow of water to go into Lake Pontchartrain. This is a satellite photo from the International Space Station in 2008. That was when I was there when we opened the spillway. And you can see the sedimentation from the Mississippi River actually in Lake Pontchartrain. So this is an effective way to reduce risk and reduce stage as you have those flows coming down the Mississippi River through New Orleans. This is what the spillway looks like as a close-up. Lake Pontchartrain in the background, the Mississippi River in the bottom part, and New Orleans down south of the spillway. This is what the Bonacary Spillway looks like in operation. It's basically needles like cross ties on a railroad track that are stacked in vertically and or horizontally, and you just pull them out and you have a series of gates across, and they engineer the opening of this structure. This is a Morganza Spillway. If you look at that area that says a potato ridge, that's pretty much where the spillway is. This is a blow-up of it. It's right along Louisiana Highway 1, and this will show a little closer view. You see the water on the right-hand side? That's during high water stages. You notice the left side is completely dry. I'll show you the effects of what this does. This is located north of Baton Rouge and south of Old River. So this was as of the 16th of May. That's about 11 gates open, 111,000 cubic feet per second. So you've created a river that during the current stage, and I think it's greater than that today, that has flows larger than the Missouri River. And to put it in context, in comparison to Niagara Falls, that's what you're looking at going through that floodway. So that's impacting about 10,000 structures, approximately 20,000 people downstream that live in that floodway. And then this photo, and it's probably hard to see, but there's some colors that are put in. This was some of the planning that was going on with our GIS. There are some tools that we use to help communicate to the public what some of the potential impacts are. There was a series of public meetings that were done in the lower part of the Morganza floodway to let these communities know what they were up against. The first one was at Butte La Rose, and that's where the district commander, Colonel Fleming, he took over from me. He had to go out and tell people standing in the room, he was standing behind a platform telling them, they were asking, how deep is the water going to be? Now this was based on 300,000 cubic feet per second estimated at that time that would have to go through Morganza. And he was telling the people that the water level is going to be 15 feet, basically the top of the auditorium they were in. And so you can imagine the reaction to that. But it's very important that we are candid and that we tell the public the risk as we know it. Now this information did get better over time, and as that information became available, in the next slide, this was posted again and communicated back to the public. So some of those levels that you saw in the previous slide came down pretty substantially, but still quite a bit of impacts to the people that live there. And this last slide, you've seen it before, but my experiences in New Orleans have to drive this home, because one part of flood risk management is this whole concept of is it protection or is it risk reduction? And it's like one of the speakers earlier said, it's like turning a battleship. There's a lot of cultural biases because we've always had what we refer to as flood protection. But this whole thing is really about communicating risk to the public. And it's not one single approach, it's multiple approaches. We did a lot of this in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And I think right now with this current flood fight, there's a great opportunity for us to do that again. It is an opportunity to communicate the residual risk to people. I've heard of statistics in Memphis, some of the flooding that's going on there right now. About 1 in 4 have flood insurance that are being impacted by this current flood. That's the same statistic that was in the greater New Orleans area. So we still have a long way to go in communicating this shared responsibility for flood risk management. And individuals do have a part of that. We did a lot of public meetings down in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, and when we put this message out, a lot of people did not want to hear that. But there is an individual component of this that's very important, that they have to first understand the risk and then take some actions to help mitigate that risk, either from evacuation plans, either moving out of the flood zone, elevating their properties, or different types of things that they can do. And then there's a lot of things that the professionals sitting in this room can also help, and that's to help the full team communicate this message with local officials, because the building codes and zoning are very essential in reducing risk in flood risk areas that we work in. So thank you for your time, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if we have time.